Hello and good afternoon or good morning still if you're still with us on the West Coast. My name is Justin Chu. Thank you for joining us for this fireside chat on volunteer management for alternative service delivery. We still have about a minute or so until the live event gets started, so we're excited to hear from you. We're excited to have our speaker on, so feel free to grab a drink, grab a snack, and settle in for this great conversation. And we look forward to talking with you in just a few minutes. All right, hello again, everyone, and thanks for taking a chance to join. We'll get started right now. We have half an hour allotted, so we're super excited to have you all on. My name is Justin Chu. I'm the program manager for the field engagement team here at Prosperity Now. For some housekeeping, today's webinar will be recorded and will be made available to all registrants. So it'll be available within a week of the live event. You'll get a link as well as some other details about the webinar itself. All webinar attendees are muted to ensure sound quality, but feel free to ask a question or share your thoughts anytime in the text box of the GoToWebinar panel. And if you're experiencing any technical issues, please feel free to email gotomeeting@prosperitynow.org. For today's agenda, we're going to spend a little bit of time framing the conversation, and then we're just going to dive on in, have this little cohort conversation with Dolores, and then we'll do a little bit of Q&A at the end, and we'll end with some next steps. For today's speakers, I introduce myself, but I'll introduce Dolores Hurst, Director of Community Impact and Income Stability for Capital Area United Way in Baton Rouge. So I'll introduce a bit about why we're here and a little bit more about this conversation. With nearly 8,000 members, the Taxpayer Opportunity Network, or TON, as we're affectionately called, is a network designed to connect Vita programs with resources that they need to help low-income workers get ahead of a system often designed to leave them behind, right? And we've seen this in effect over the past year plus. Vita sites, as well as many other Americans, were affected really hard by COVID-19 pandemic. In 2020, due to lockdowns across the country, Vita sites had to shut their doors in the middle of the tax season and prepare to sort of reopen virtually ahead of that July 15th deadline. And that virtual work had to continue into this year. Thus, it was imperative that Vita sites implement alternative service tax preparation processes and recruit volunteers for virtual work across coalitions and communities to serve taxpayers. And this became even more important when it came to accessing stimulus payments. This presented all sorts of new challenges, especially in underserved communities where the digital divide may have prevented taxpayers from accessing Vita or non-filers from accessing that stimulus payment. Prosperity Now, with the generous support of the Rockefeller Foundation, launched the Ensuring and Expanding Access to Tax Preparation Services in Underserved Communities project in the fall. While that is a mouthful, it is a great project that was aimed to ensure that economically vulnerable households in 6 of the nation's most vulnerable communities could access high-quality tax prep services for free, claim the EITC and other tax credits, and access ancillary support and resources to improve their household financial health during this public and economic crisis. You can see some of our cohort members here on this slide. We have Capital Area United Way of Baton Rouge in Louisiana, United Way of Southern Cameron County in Brownsville, Texas, United Way of the Ouachitas in Hot Springs, Arkansas, and then we also have United Way of Central Georgia in Macon, Georgia, and then United Way of Greenville County in Greenville, South Carolina, and United Way of the Low Country in Beaufort, South Carolina. Our cohort members participated in one-on-one TA to support their efforts, as well as engage in a series of peer calls that allowed them to learn from each other, as well as other experts in the field. In this fireside chat series, you'll hear directly from a few of our cohort members and how they implemented their efforts for alternative service delivery, volunteer management, coalition building over the last few months in this fully virtual world. And today we'll be hearing from our partner, Dolores Hurst from Capital Area United Way, talking a little about volunteer management for alternative service delivery. Our next session will be on the 15th, talking about alternative service delivery and client outreach. And our final session will be on the 28th, talking about engaging partners in coalitions to advance your cause. So 3 great topics, and we'll just dive on into the first one today. And we'll talk with Dolores. Dolores, how are you?
I'm great, happy to be here. Happy to be invited to speak, and excited to kind of share a little bit of information about what we've been doing with our program.
Awesome, and we're glad to have you on. Let's just dive right into the first question, which is, what does your Vita volunteer program look like usually in a typical tax season?
In a typical tax season, we usually have 26 sites and 165 volunteers and site coordinators for each of our sites, and some assistant site coordinators. And actually, we're mostly face-to-face. We've never had alternative services through our Vita program. It was always face-to-face with maybe 1 or 2 sites that were doing drop-off methods. And out of those 26 sites, maybe about 5 that were ad hoc or mobile sites. So we had like a series of volunteers that we invite to do mobile. But when I came on board, I switched it up a little bit and created a mobile team that would go to each of the mobile events instead of trying to pick from volunteers who are already at permanent sites. We switched it to where we had a mobile team that went out to each of our mobile events.
Yeah, I mean, with those mobile units, I wonder, when COVID-19 hit and you had to sort of implement that, how did you keep the volunteers around, sort of mobile or otherwise?
Okay, so honestly, I have really great volunteers, really dedicated, really fearless volunteers. Let me put it like that, very fearless. But honestly, it was more of staying on top of it and communicating very, very, very early. So when we saw a little bit of a shift in our office and maneuvering our office a little bit, that's when I realized, okay, well, let me get on top of everything with my site coordinators, get on top of everything with my Vita sites to figure out exactly how we're going to work it out and continue to serve people in the state that we're in. So we were able to shut down for about 2 weeks. And because they had so much done, so many people done already, but also had a very good relationship with our host sites, we were able to keep in contact with them and find out for sure who was willing to stay open and who was willing to allow us to do alternative services, drop-off method, or whether we had a volunteer that would sit there one day and do virtual process, whether it was phone to phone, because we didn't really have a virtual system in place. So, okay, well, if we can get them on the phone, then we can get their taxes done as well. So we were took those 2 weeks, and I really met with my site coordinators a lot of times throughout those 2 weeks to kind of figure out how we're going to maneuver, how we're going to do it. So we reopened about 9 sites out of the permanent 21, and then most of those sites switched to drop off. And then I had about 4 site coordinators who were straight virtual and had virtual work between their assistants. So I had site coordinators that would drive from St. Francisville in well, St. Francisville, which is like 30, 45 minutes away from Baton Rouge. So they would drive from St. Francisville, do taxes in St. Francisville. Then they would take the taxes from this person, drive to Baton Rouge, and let this person do quality review, things like that. So we kind of was maneuvering how we can make this work in the space that we're in, how we cross city traveling, phone to phone. But it was chaotic, but it was most the best organized chaos, as I like to call it. But it worked, and we actually hit 95% of our goal, and we were able to finish out the season strong, and it was great. We made it work.
Yeah, first of all, that's fantastic about the capacity and making it work. I mean, having fearless volunteers is always great when it comes to situations like this. And I was curious about how you recruited or retained sort of these fearless volunteers. Did you have any challenges or, particularly successes you want to share?
Okay, so honestly, at that time, when the pandemic first hit, when we closed and when we opened back up, we did lose half of those volunteers who were there, who were in it. And well, we had site coordinators that asked the question. So I give a lot of power and control to my site coordinators to build that relationship up with their volunteers and build up the relationship with their host sites. So we got on top of it. Hey, who's willing to stay? Who's willing to volunteer in this pandemic? And we're going to make sure that you have everything you need to be as safe as possible. So we already was like, okay, I'm allocating dollars so that I can get everything that they need so that they can be open and running in whatever alternative measure that they're going to be in. So because we were on top of it, we were communicating, we had these people that were very interested in staying and in the safest way possible, and we made sure that they were safe. They were willing to stay, and when it came to this year, what made people and what made it successful, because we switched from being a all face-to-face site to being 16 sites that were face-to-face. And then we had our mobile team that was going to we did about 20 mobile events this year. We did about 20 mobile events this year with our mobile team. And then we had 4 sites that merged to 100% virtual through Get Your Refund. Now, what made us retain and recruit volunteers this year in this pandemic and in the way, even last year, because we had a recruitment plan as well. I started my recruitment plan in July and August. I started recruiting social media, local newspapers, relationship building, going to coalition meetings to spread about Vita, talk about Vita and the message and everything like that. But it wasn't the medium that changed, but it was the messaging. So because we put messaging at the forefront, that we were moving and piloting a virtual process, but also that in the drop-off method and in the face-to-face method, that we were going to make sure that people had every safety precaution. When we verbalized that and how we were going to keep people safe, that's what made people want to join in and buy into it. So the way that we messaged it, I worked with our marketing team at United Way. The way that we messaged it, the mayor's office kind of put a stamp on it a little bit in Baton Rouge. So we were able to get news outlets to pick it up, and news outlets picked it up in the local, smaller rural areas. And when they picked it up, people wanted to join in and like emailing the Vita. And then we created a web form that would make it easier for people to just go in, tell me where you want to go. And most of those web forms were like virtual. So we were able to honestly get 50 people new recruited for virtual. So, virtual or Vita. And then a lot of those people who did put virtual, they were like, well, I'm willing to do drop off or face-to-face if we are in a safe environment, or if I have to travel somewhere, I'm willing to do that as well. So, and it was honestly, they didn't get just anyone when they communicated with the Vita program, they got me. So once they did their web form, it came to me. I did a follow-up, and anything that they communicated, any question they had, any way they wanted to, they talked directly to the director. not a site coordinator, not another volunteer to talk to me. So that's what made them want to join in and stay in and get everything they needed.
I think that sounds great. This web form, it sounds like a great tool for other Vita programs to use. Would you be willing to share that with the attendees afterwards?
Yeah. And we did the web form, and it automatically populated who was new versus and I had everybody. So I had my site coordinators tell my returning volunteers to do this web form because I wanted everybody in one spot and in one space. So when I pulled it, and I had my marketing team pull it for me, it has everyone's name, phone number, address, email, where they want to volunteer potentially, all of that already listed. And then they on the web form on our website, they can get a Google map and they can see where each of our sites are located. So they can click on our sites and they'll see that the address is here and this is the distance from where I live. Okay, well, let me go to Catholic Charities because I live, in the 70802 area. It will be easy for me to travel there versus all the way in Point Capee, and they're in 70760. So when they see the Google map, they're like, okay, well, I'm gonna do the web form. If I'm new, I'm not sure who I want, but these are options and these are the places that I've heard of. And then I'll follow up with, okay, so have you reached out to anybody at Catholic Charities yet or anything like that, to kind of just gauge the mindset of the people that want to volunteer, and then go from there. But I'll share it. I'm sorry. I'll share it.
No, I think that's perfect. I think that's great. I think because it's a great way to sort volunteers and get them to engage in a way that they want to, right? And reaching them where they are. You mentioned stuff about local news and things you typically do, right? Like local news, advertisements, social media, things like that. But are there any other tools or resources or messaging besides like virtual and safety messaging that you use to recruit or retain volunteers over the past year?
Honestly, incentive, and I found that this is very effective. We have our own Vita logo, and I'm pretty sure most people have their own Vita logo. But we have our own Vita logo that we created, and an incentive of ours is in our appreciation of our volunteers. If we do an event, our parties, and I'm sure that's typical. Everybody do their appreciation events and things like that. But we give our gifts, and we have our Vita logo on the swag. So we make sure that it's something that's usable. Like if it's a cup or a glass or something that's in the Vita site or something like that, you see the Vita logo. Or if they're at an event with their friends or at a barbecue or something, they got the Vita logo on there and they're asking questions. Oh, well, what's that? How can I get involved with Vita? So we kind of put our logo on anything that we want to give to our volunteers because they act as our own recruiters themselves. And then we create our own lawn signs that we keep at each site. And when I created, when I had to open up a new site in Point Capee in the Housing Authority, a lot of the lawn signs that we created for volunteer recruitment and to direct them to the site itself, but a lot of that had people questioning, well, I'm interested in you doing my taxes, but from there, how can I become a volunteer as well so I can learn this? And then also alternative method of messaging too, going to the schools, going to the colleges, where LSU was starting to invite a lot of our volunteers to come and speak to their students about taxes and the importance of taxes. And then a lot of those students were interested in actually becoming a Vita volunteer so they could train themselves and learn how to do the taxes and learn how to do the tax process. So any avenue that was open to us, any relationship that we built that gave us opportunity to speak or go somewhere, we said yes. It's the biggest thing with us is always saying yes to opportunity and not shutting the doors or shutting people out, and just being open to whatever is thrusted. That's how I operate. That I always try to say yes within means if it works, and go from there. And it's been working.
Yeah, I think that sort of leads into my next question, right? Just saying yes and trying everything and getting word of mouth going. Like, are there any other strategies that you find successful in particular?
As far as getting word of mouth?
For volunteer engagement or recognition?
Oh, okay, in volunteer recognition. Honestly, incentives. what really works is incentives first. Second is effective, strong communication, transparency, and a real structured hierarchy. So, and I've only been doing this, honestly. I've been 2 Vita seasons, and when I was running it last year, I was only doing it for 4 months before the pandemic hit. So, but before all of that, when I came to the table, um, I met my site coordinators, and we had meetings, and we have meetings consistently. And it was, okay, well, Dolores, we need to figure out where communication is coming from, how we're going to funnel communication. And I'm like, y'all have the best relationship with your volunteers. So I can tell you this, and I can tell you this, and what's going to change, and what's going to be new, and what's going to be that, but you can communicate it to your volunteers as well. So let's establish that relationship and that hierarchy. But I'm not going to be a name without a face. So not only they knew the hierarchy of, oh yeah, come to them and they'll come to me, but I will go to sites, or I'm ordering supplies, I'm going to deliver them myself. If I'm getting printers, if I'm getting tech, whatever you need that's highly special, I'm going to order and make sure it comes here, and then I'm going to drop it off to the site myself so that you can see my face too, and that you can meet me as well. And so that's what makes them want to stay. That not only that I'm getting what they need in a timely manner, and I'm communicating. They see me, they know who I am, and that I'm willing to do what I have to do for my volunteers and advocating for my volunteers to get what they need.
Yeah, I think it sounds like just getting buy-in and
Mm-hmm.
getting volunteers involved is something that is very crucial to you in particular.
Yeah,
And I think it's crucial in Vita programs across the country for
right.
sure. I would say the last question for you before we head into audience question and answer
Mm-hmm.
is, what advice do you have for listeners, like anyone here going forward, when it comes to alternative service delivery, volunteer management, or retention?
Um, it would be to utilize every resource, because you don't know who's listening, or um, what circles you can get into, especially because right now United Way, our capital United Way, is doing a food insecurity coalition, or the mayor's office was doing financial literacy education for 6 weeks. Then, so in that spaces, I got invited to the table in both spaces. Food insecurity had nothing to do with taxes, but guess what? It came up, or financial literacy has a lot to do with taxes. So of course it came up. I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna be present. Or preach there. That's the prison reform coalition. Get invited to their meetings. Okay, well, let's figure out how we can help these families of incarcerated folks or people who were just released. So okay, well, let's figure out a way that we can involve Vita in that. I get recruitment from that. I get relationship from that. I get um, information from that. So it's just making sure that you utilize every resource and be present in the environment, in the community, so that you can get everything that you need from relationships all around, because you never know where a resource or where something can come from.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think that's great advice. Easy, easy to digest,
Yeah.
short and sweet. We're gonna go right now to question and answer. And if you want to jump into this conversation, put your question in the question box. You have about a few minutes. And I think we'll go to one here, which is, a lot of volunteers miss the camaraderie of working in a site. How did you or address that lack of camaraderie in that virtual environment?
Okay, so I have an amazing site coordinator. I have an amazing site coordinator, Alex. Alex Cole. I'm going to shout him out with Entergy. Oh no, he's not Entergy. He's Exxon. Most of my volunteers too virtual. A lot of them are Entergy employees as well. But Alex Cole, when he and I was structuring the virtual, he was like, Dolores, let's have weekly meetings. Let's do weekly meetings, virtual meetings, whether it's just me and you and somebody else, we just talking. And but Alex, from there, from our weekly meetings, it kind of established this rapport of everybody's going to get on Zoom on Saturdays to flesh out whatever issues you have with the virtual technology, logging into it, navigating through it, whatever questions you have about tax returns, Louisiana tax, whatever it is, we're getting on Saturday from 10 to noon. And we found that people were getting on and engaging with each other on Zoom, on camera, every Saturday, just to flesh out whatever issues and whatever things they had going on throughout their week while they were out there.
That's great. I mean, getting people on camera, at least looking face to face, I think
Exactly.
that's a great way to sort of bridge that gap. I think another question that came in from the audience is about service delivery for next year, right? Are you gonna go back to that in person with your 2026 model, 26 sites, or are you gonna keep this hybrid? What's the plan?
We'll likely keep it hybrid, but I believe some of the drop off that we have, because we had a heavy drop off method this year. I think those sites are going to go back to face because our highest producing site, because she couldn't be face to face because she was 100% drop off this year, she went from serving 1,300 to 1,500 people to like 1,000. So I think she's gonna want to go face to face, back to face to face. And then we're gonna try to keep the virtual process because we liked it and we like the method of it. But we're probably gonna lose 2 sites that were connected to the virtual process, and they're gonna probably be face to face again. But my volunteers here, they love face to face. They want to be face to face. Most of my volunteers who's 10 plus years, they're big on being face to face. But the virtual process wasn't a bad process, and drop off was very easy, very quick. So I know that a couple of rural places will want to be drop off because they can get those rural people in and out in 20, 30 minutes, and it's really is no time. So likely will be.
Awesome. And we have one more question just under the wire. You talked a little bit about your volunteers from Entergy and Exxon, right? So how did you get those corporate partners as virtual volunteers? Like, what was the sell, and was it an easy one, difficult one?
It was relationship. So I already had a relationship with a Vita coordinator with Entergy, or quote unquote somebody who does outreach with Vita for my Super Tax Day. So when I planned our Super Tax Day last year, we went all out that year. So I didn't say no to anything. Like, yes, you want a popcorn machine? Let's go. Let's do it. You want the Saints football team to come? We can figure out how to get on the schedule. You get what I'm saying? So we kept it open. I kept it open. So I had a great relationship with her. So communicating with her, going to the Entergy meetings with them. And then also I was a CRM as well. I was a fundraiser. So I had a relationship with Entergy in St. Francisville as well. So so I knew the people there once I was connected to St. Francisville Entergy, and I was connected to Baton Rouge Entergy because of the relationships I built from both spaces. So honestly, it's getting connected with people inside of it, and then building a relationship from there. And how to do that is finding someone who knows someone, and to get into the door. To be honest, it really was that simple. Just building that relationship.
All right, I think that's where we'll leave it. Get in, make your relationships, and leverage them as best you can.
Yeah,
Thank you so much, Dolores, and thank you everyone for all of your questions. And we apologize if we couldn't get to them right away. However, there are some next steps for you. We have our end of season survey for TON. If you are a member of the Tax Roundtable listserv, you'll receive some notification about that. And it's our way of getting involved and helping understand what's going on in the Vita field, as well as what we can do as TON as ton to help you going forward. In addition, we have 2 more of these fireside chats, like I said, on the 15th and the 28th of this month, same time. And if you're registered for this call, you'll be a member and you'll be registered for the next call as well. And please complete the survey at the end of this webinar. And that's it. Thank you so much, Dolores, for taking time to talk to us today. And thank you for everyone else for being a part of this audience. I look forward to seeing you guys on the next one. Have a great day. Goodbye.